everybody. Thank you for being here, and thank you for joining us for the last 2 days. We have dove into the intricacies of SBIR and STTR programs. And to tie it all together and to conclude, we wanted to bring in a local Vegas success story. Now, Bill Reny and SeeID have won and applied for numerous SBIR awards. Really excited to have Bill here with us today to tell us all about the process and what he went through, and now his success story today. So thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Hopefully everyone can see me. Well, I know I'm radio pretty. I admit that. When it comes down to it. So what we're going to start with, I want to show you what we did for our phase 2 award, so you understand kind of our background in SeeID, and then we'll delve into the SBIR process that we went through. So Maggie, if you kick off the video, it's a short video that we did to show to close it out. Okay, so you saw a little bit of what SeeID did, and that was part of our phase 2 project. And awesome, there's SeeID. So there we go. And this is our team. And one of the biggest things about an SBIR package putting together is a team package. And I want you to understand the team that I have behind and with me that really allows the SBIR evaluators to understand that they're getting a package deal. And then we're going to get into that a little bit, but when it comes down to it, it's about your team. if anybody is submitting a submittal for an SBIR package with 1 to 2 people, I'm pretty sure you're not going to get it unless you're God in somewhere, in some way. And to convince somebody that you're God is going to be really difficult. So it is going to be about the team. So what has SeeID done? We've actually done 24 SBIR applications. 12 of them were actually selected and then went unfunded because they ran out of money during the process. So, and it happens. Granted, that's with the Air Force when it comes down to it, but most of the time they're going to tell you, hey, you were selected or not selected when it comes down to it. And there's a lot to that. We've had 2 SBIR Phase 1 awards, one with the Air Force and one with the DLA. And then we've had 1 Phase 2 award that's actually just successfully been completed. And now it's being converted to what's called a TAC-5 to Phase 3. And then we have 4 potential contracts. Wow, the infinite rainbow. Awesome. So the SBIR process, it is a tough process. Having a good writer is really important, having a great team, and then understanding where it fits with the program office that you're going to be applying to. That is really difficult to be able to figure out. The nice thing is, during the SBIR process, they tell you all that criteria when they announce the BAA or that it's there. You can figure out everything to be able to do it. But if you're just selecting for that BAA, your customer, at that point, you're already behind the scale for the entire SBIR process. You should be reaching out to your agencies now that you want to work with for the next round of the SBIR. Because if you're doing it during the SBIR process, you're behind the ball when it comes down to it. Your customer needs to know you, and you've got to understand your customer better to be able to write how you solve their problem. Most people don't understand that. And it is a sales. Yes, sir. Got a question? Yes, there is. You have a 6 months window for selected unfunded, and any other. So if you get selected in the Air Force, you can go to any other agency or anybody in the Air Force and say, hey, I've been selected. It's an approved contract vehicle already. And if someone else has money in the government that wants to fund your project, they can actually fund it and convert it. We actually had one that was selected unfunded, but there's let's take another step back. If it's a direct to Phase 2, you have to have been awarded a Phase 1 already. So everyone asks that, should I do a direct to Phase 2? I say don't do it. And the reason why is because if you get selected and unfunded, you have no way to convert those funds over. You have to have been awarded a Phase 1. The Phase 1 is the most important aspect of the SBIR program than anything else, because let's say you get awarded a Phase 1, that is now a contract vehicle that they can sole source anything that they want to in volume. They could, if they wanted to buy F-35 aircraft through your contract award, they could, if that's applicable. Just as a numbers idea, they can do anything when it comes down to it. Phase 1 award is what your goal is to do, and it's the most competitive. Like for the DLA, we did a Phase 1 award, or we were awarded this year for it. There was 1,800 applications for that award, and they only awarded 4 when it comes down to it. So it's very competitive. The thing is, know your customer, find out what their problem sets, and write to that. And that's what you really have to understand. You got to know your customer before you're even doing the application. If you think that you can go in and win an application without knowing your customer, that's where you're going to fail, because you're not writing to how they look at the problem. So, and that's the biggest thing when it comes down to it. When I always say do it, start with a Phase 1. Get awarded a Phase 1, because the conversions from Phase 1 to Phase 2 for that application, like when we got awarded our Phase 2, there was 130 people that had applied for a Phase 2 application. 100 of them got Phase 2 awards. So your chance of success to a Phase 2, if it's applicable, is huge.
So you mentioned that you guys just got awarded a Phase 1 award.
Mhm.
However, I think SeeID is already a phase 2. So like, how does that work? Like,
So we had a phase 1 first with the Air Force, and agencies like to silo stuff and say, hey, no, we don't want to use another agency's SBIR. They want to be in kind of steering the ship in their own aspect, unless you have something that's already applicable. Like for the Air Force, the Army to do a phase 1 award is not really applicable. For the DLA, they want to build a WMS system, a warehouse management system that is applicable to the DLA. And that's what we're building with them. It's totally different than the use case that the Air Force has for us.
same technology.
Same, and yes, same technology, but the software behind it is totally different. So there's a question in the back.
So I'm trying to read the numbers behind you.
Oh, okay.
so
They can't see me when, so.
So you had three.
Oh, they will?
You
Okay.
had 3 successful awards.
Yep.
You're looking at 4 that are possible conversions.
Yeah, so when I talk about contracts, each base to add on to they do their own contract for each installation.
So these 4 are done deals, though. The 4 phase 3 conversions are done deals, and you just
Not necessarily. They're in the contracting process.
Okay.
So
And then the 12 that were unfunded, you were able to go to different other areas of the service and say, this was selected, but they didn't follow through, and you're able to turn that into opportunities with the
no.
other.
So that you have that ability. It's to find an agency that has money. Everyone's broke. That you can go to them and say, I don't have money. I don't have money. We actually found an agency that actually had money, and we had a direct to phase 2 application. They said, hey, we want to fund it, but they couldn't do the conversion because we didn't have a phase 1. And that's why I say, hey, always get a phase 1 award. Get a phase 1. Focus on your phase 1 application. Because if you have a phase 1 award, then they can always tie that back to it if you get a selected unfunded in a phase 2. So,
Okay.
and it's easier to go with other agencies. The most competitive process is a phase 1 award. And if you have a phase 1 award and they want your technology, they can throw money at it very, very fast. And it's unlimited dollar amount.
Well, if I'm reading this correctly, and I apologize if I'm not, it seems like the number of awards you're winning is not very large, but the business that you're creating from it becomes very large.
Very.
From everything else. So the model that our friend Rand Paul would like us to do of commercialization is basically what you're doing is you're successfully taking stuff into the market and successfully creating sales, which is cool.
Well, so for us, the purpose of the SBIR program that's a real benefit to business is non-diluted funding. That's what I took away from it. Is as a founder of a company, the reason why I want to be in the SBIR STTR program is because I get to develop my project for a customer. So I'm building a customer relationship, and I get non-diluted funding that I don't have to go out and panhandle for money and raise capital. I get the military or one of the 27 government agencies to say, hey, we're going to help you develop this and prototype and do all this and be a market test for you. That's the benefit of being in that program. So you get non-diluted funding, and that's the win for it. And you're building a relationship with a potential customer. So then you can go to your civilian on the commercial side, you can go to them and say, hey, this is what I'm doing with this customer, whether it's the DOE, whether it's the Air Force, whoever that might be, and say, this is what I'm doing here. Do you want to use this here? So it's kind of, and it becomes a big win. It's a big deal to be awarded an SBIR. So that's why it's so competitive too. So, and there are plenty of people that out there and do writing and tune it. And there's a lot of agencies that do that. The biggest catch with many of those agencies is they want a big portion of the SBIR award. They want a percentage of that award. And it normally can be substantial, like 10% is the average out there. So it's SBIR, the benefit for a small business is you get a customer and you get non-diluted funding and you get ownership to all the technology, unless it's something that ends up becoming a classified project. So, and then the Air Force comes in and writes you a nice check and say, hey, we own it, or the military does. And you say, great, I'm going to go home to my island. So
I remember a product called ArcGIS. I had to integrate it a few times for a few different agencies. Are you seeing backlash with the amount of competition that was already out prior to you guys?
Was there a lot of competition for us? Is that what I'm trying to?
There was a product called ArcGIS, like long before 9/11, that was out, where it was tracking assets.
So there are a lot of there's even a one of our biggest white whale takeover projects is a company called Savvy that does in-transit visibility when it comes down to it. But it's a brick and it's attached to a pallet and it's got a non-serviceable battery, but it's working at a frequency that old RFID systems. We're 5G and we don't need proprietary equipment or readers to be able to use. You can interrogate my technology with your cell phone.
Wow.
You can do it with the laptop and computer here. What I'm trying to do is improve the system. Most people compare us to Apple and the AirTag.
Oh,
But
wow.
one of the problems that you have with the Apple system is you have to have an Apple iPhone, you have to have a cellular network involved and everything like that. And I eliminated that.
Good
So,
deal.
and that's what we did. So the cost of ownership for our system is real simple, and it works with devices that most entities already have. So, and that's what we made different. So then you can layer on a whole bunch of different technologies to it. And the one thing that was the biggest selling point for us is we're edge data. We're a data source. We don't have to be the dashboard. And we're working with 27 legacy programs in the Air Force to be able to input data. And they were like, oh, you don't have to be a standalone? No, we're just going to push data. And that was our big win for the military. So, got another question.
I do have some more questions, but I want
Great,
you to get through your slides.
No, that's it. This was the end. This was close.
Okay. All right. So the next level, and I may have asked this in our previous life.
Yeah.
Are you at a point where you've either approached or could approach an entity like, say, for example, Las Vegas Paving or Caterpillar for their commercial use of your?
We're already actually doing it. Caterpillar is already a customer of ours. Las Vegas Paving is already a customer of ours. So our commercialization is literally 2/3 of our revenue stream. So when it comes down to it, so yeah. Yes. So so many people, when it comes down to it, for SBIR program, the SBIR program trumps the Tribal 8A, and I want to understand that. So if you have an SBIR award, you literally can sole source everything. And contracting officers actually love that because they can go back to that SBIR and do it. So let's talk about the other side on contracting. If you go to a base and you want to sell something to a military installation or the DOE, any other government agency, that has to go out to competitive bid. And there's set asides for sole sourcing, whether it's a woman-owned business, disabled veteran, Native American is what's considered a Tribal 8A. There's also minority-owned, then there's hub zone. And all of us, once in our life, can actually do a sole source set aside, but there's contracting limits to that. And it makes it a little difficult because you also have to convince that contracting officer that you have a secret sauce that can't be replicated by anybody else, which is really difficult to do. But if you have a Tribal 8A, that's like a golden ticket, and to where there's no monetary amount up to $100 million that you have to require justification because they want to push stuff to sole source. The Congress has mandated government agencies do minority set-asides. I think it's 15%, and they've never met it. So they're real eager to do it. The problem is it's really difficult to convince somebody to use your system, especially when you're a small business. But the SBIR process kind of really trumps that, because what you've done is you've shown, hey, I pioneered this project with your customer. They love this system. Now funnel money to me to really become enterprise-wide for your agency. And they can sole source any dollar amount. There's no monetary limit in the SBIR program. if you have an SBIR award. And that company owns that now. And even BAE, Lockheed Martin, some of the biggest contractors in the world, can't take that away from you. They can't trump that. They can't come in and protest that because the government agency has already developed that program with you, and that's the partnership that you've created. And it has gone through the competitive award process, and that's been approved by Congress. So,
But you could sell to them.
yes,
You could sell to Lockheed if you wanted to.
I could.
Okay. All right. So there's another comment in here. I'm going to read it to you. John Abbey has a direct to AFWorks phase 2 deemed selectable based on technical merit with no funding available. We have another.
So that's a selected unfunded.
Yeah, we
Yep.
have another Air Force base looking at using that award. Are you saying they can't do that?
If you have not been awarded an SBIR phase 1, they can't convert it.
Okay, here's the next comment. Can you speak to what was the technology angle you applied for with SBIR program? How did you speak to novelty? It sounds like the technology is already being commercialized to Caterpillar, while you were also further developing the solution within SBIRs.
That's correct. So the novelty for us was there's a big push in Congress for 5G, and our system uses the 5G bandwidth when it comes down to that. So that was the focus that we did for the novelty. The second was finding out what the customer use case. We actually went after the MUNs, and if you understand the Air Force when it comes to munitions, you have to have, it's very difficult to work in a munitions environment because you have to have a HERO certification, which is hazardous electronic radio ordnance, so it doesn't explode the ordnance. And then you also have to, we can also work in a nuclear environment around nuclear weapons to be able to track. And that's difficult. So we went for the most difficult tracking problem and said, hey, we can do that with this technology. We had some certifications already. And they were like, oh, great, let's prove this out. And the MUNs in the Air Force is kind of, I hate to say it, but they don't get a lot of attention that they should. And they're a logistics organization, and that's what we are. We help with efficiencies and logistics. And they're all about moving munitions, building stuff, doing pick operations, and that's what we did. And we wrote a presentation, or several of them, and it finally got selected. So it was about throwing paint on the wall. So
How many did you do?
I did, before we got selected, we had done 6 that actually got awarded. We had a lot that were selected unfunded. And that was the reason why during those periods, COVID, if we didn't have something that was related to COVID, they didn't care. It was all about solving COVID during that time.
Okay, and another comment in here. Did you pitch your full solution for each SBIR, or did you pitch discrete elements of your solution separately in the different applications?
What we did was, what can we solve with this to where you can get funding for? So, and we wanted to focus it and relate it towards a hardware project. So you can silo your SBIR applications to different areas and to where your entire solution can fit, but you want to say, I'm solving one problem. And that's what you do, is you go in and try and solve one problem. Don't try and boil the ocean. Solve one problem, and then they get you the customer, then you can start incrementing out. So
Yeah, what I wanted to follow up on is, and if you have an individual that didn't get the phase 1, but they're already in the phase 2, is there a solution or technical assistance that can help that individual get the phase 1 after the fact?
So if they have been awarded a direct to phase 2, that is a competitive process also for a phase 1. So, but it has to be a full award. It can't be a selected unfunded. If it's been a selected funded, that is considered the same thing as a phase 1 award. The problem that you have with the direct to phase 2 is everyone's like, oh, I don't need to worry about a phase 1. You know, that's a small dollar amount. You know, they range between 75,000 to 200,000, and everyone thinks in big money. If you go to direct to phase 2, you're like, that's $750 to $2 million. That's what I want to get. that is the most competitive thing. And you literally have to know the person that's doing the selection and have presented to that person multiple times that they would even recognize your solution, because they're dealing with 1,000 applications. It's staggering numbers that on those directed phase 2 applications, unless it's so siloed like on weapon systems or on light beams and stuff like that, where maybe there's only 10 companies that are applying. So
And the only reason I'm asking is I'm trying to figure out, is that a problem that occurs enough that we need to focus on it? Or is it a matter of it doesn't happen that often, so it's not worthy of even trying to solve?
When it comes to the politics of the SBIR and trying to solve those problems, it's not even worth focusing on, at my point, because it's for a small business or even an agency like StartUpNV to try and say, hey, we want to advocate for this change. How often the SBIR program changes, it's not worth it to even focus on.
Okay, message.
So,
that's why I'm at.
Yeah. Is there any more questions?
So the first time you did an SBIR application, how many hours did it take you to write it versus the 23rd one?
So the first one, just to find what I thought I needed as a template, I probably spent 30 hours writing it. And now I can turn out an SBIR application in 20 minutes.
20 minutes, folks.
Yeah, putting the budget together and writing an SBIR, submitting it, I can get the biggest problem that I have is the SBIR application page. It's a pain in the butt because it's not easy to work with. That's the holdup.
Yeah, related question. You touched on it, but I wanted to dig a little deeper because I'm texting some people.
Mm-hmm.
When you first came up with the idea, was it your original idea that you talked to with the client? Yeah, that's what I'm interested in. Is I want people to understand
for the SBIR process. When I found the MUNs as a customer, it was difficult. The first technology arm that I went after was actually autonomous vehicles, because that's what my patent was awarded on, and saying, hey, this is what I think. But I had to do a pivot of 180 degrees because the autonomous vehicle market to where it be prolific is 7 years away every year, and it's been that way just for adoption. So, but our technology was so good when it comes to locating that we were like, what other areas that we could do to generate revenue? And then that's where we went after logistics and saying, dots on map, where's my stuff? How can I do it accurately and cheaply? So yes, we had, and that's where the market study changed, and a lot of feedback from customers and say, dude, I just don't have a use case. I don't have this infrastructure, blah, 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 blah. So we did a pivot.
And then the related question to that is, what was it in your individual and collective backgrounds that helped you identify people or sources of information to help you figure out your target, where you want it to go?
Lots of knocks on the head, and meetings, cold calls, trying to find first, like when I first found Ed Nabrowski, our CEO, I was the original founder and had to put together a team, and it was not an easy thing, because you got to find people smart enough. I'm not NRF. I don't know anything about radio frequency, but I designed the system for the first application, and I had to find a scientist that could actually build it, and someone that had experience. And then along the way, I needed somebody that was a real good operations and day-to-day, and that could duplicate what we were doing. And that's when I found Charles Maddox. And then Ed was he was the CTO for the largest RF manufacturer in the world. That was Omni ID, and he was in the process of getting bought out by Panasonic. And then he became the director of IoT for Panasonic. And when we had a meeting 3 years ago at the Pentagon, when we were pitching our system through this SBIR process, that's when he was like, this is going to be a home run because the military wants this. And with the military background that our team had, and then that's when Charles Maddox actually found our CTO, because he went through master's school. a lot of hard knocks. I had other business partners that I've fired, and until we came together with this team, and then it was all about the market study, interviewing the customers, everything. Can we actually solve their problem? And we found out that we could, and that's where it's going prolific. So it's a lot.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to draw out and have people hear. And thank you very much.
It's not an easy process, because the biggest thing about a business is it is a marriage in many different ways. And there are going to be days when the company's starving and everyone's got to pull together and be able to move it forward as founders. And then how do you keep getting to that next milestone? How do you get the customers and keep the sales going? But the SBIR is a great program for non-diluted funding for companies that have they have a great package deal. So
A comment you made a minute ago kind of dovetails with this. How did you structure your compensation for team building without funding? And did you do deferred compensation or equity? How'd you structure it?
So I started out as 100% owner of the company. Obviously, that's not true anymore. I had to set milestones with my business partner and say, hey, you get to this is how much of the company you get. So yeah, it was, you don't want to give it up carte blanche. Most people make that mistake in the start, and I did. And I had some bad business partners. I had to fire them. So, and that became messy to unwind. And once you do, then you learn, okay, you bring someone on, they got to meet milestones, and then they get equity. So you got to be willing. The biggest thing when it comes to a company as a founder is you got to decide, do you want to be in control or do you want to win? I want to win. And that's my motto. It's about winning, and you got to be willing to give up control to a trusted source. And that's the hard thing to be able to find. So, and I'm out to win. So I don't need to be in control. And I originally started out as CEO of the company. I stepped aside because Ed, he's got his doctorate in this technology, and he's already had 4 successful exits. This is my first startup. Why to StartUpNV? As soon as they saw his pedigree, it was like, oh, this is easy. I wasn't even a part of the presentation. So
The thing about Ed too is he knows how to answer a question directly.
are you saying I don't?
I
My
didn't
one
say
feeling.
that.
Yeah.
No, but it's really interesting as an observer
Mhm.
to your company is that, yes, Bill had to give up control, but he knew that it was going to be respected by the people he gave up the control to.
Yeah.
That's really rare. That's
Yeah.
hard.
It is hard. And that's why it's very difficult to find and put together a team that's going to win. And we're on that path to do that. So, and I also have a drive because I have a very competitive family. Many of the people I've talked about, my twin brother sold his last company for $1.9 billion. And I'm not going to be second place in my family.
Yeah, I was about to give you a compliment because you're touching on, at least for me, what resonated with me during the Angel NV and some of the other parts of the process is, unfortunately, I was involved with another group where a key founder couldn't come to the place that you're talking about. Their ego, their stubbornness, whatever you want to call it, it didn't move. Whereas in your hand, so again, I want to just give you a public comment.
Thank you.
For what you've done, plus being willing to share it with other founders so that we can duplicate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. And if anybody has any questions, they want some support on SBIRs, I do that. I advise. I don't have a problem with that. StartUpNV was so crucial when we got started. I want to be able to give back, and I do. So, and unfortunately, I became an expert in the SBIRs more than I ever wanted to.
20 minutes.
So, but yeah, thank you all. I appreciate your time.
Bill, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's just so inspiring to hear about your success. And after the last 2 days and so many sessions, sometimes it can all kind of blur together, but it's really helpful sometimes to just see the application and to really understand how this can help you in your business. So I want to say thank you to everyone who attended the sessions and for being here. And if you want to explore the SBIR world and would like more information or like more context, please feel free to reach out. Thank you again.